Good morning. We are going to get started today on our coil bowl. So the first thing you need to do if you haven't done this already is you need to go read the kitchen. So I have gotten two different bowls. These are just plastic bowls. You can get a glass bowl if you want to. Just keep in mind you're going to be using it for a couple of days. So don't grab your favorite cereal bowl because it's going to be out of commission for a day or two. So here we go. You're also going to need a plastic bag, and this is just one of those really cheap plastic bags from the store. I happen to like them the best. If you don't have that, you can grab some saran wrap, and we'll just line the bowl with the saran wrap, or a produce bag, so just kind of whatever type of bag you can find. Okay, so this is the most important step that I'm going to show you today. Take your bowl, put your plastic over the bowl, press it down into the middle, and this is going to be where we build our coils up. If you make the mistake of not putting any plastic on your bowl, your coils are going to stick in here badly, and then you're going to be sad because it's going to have to be started over. All right, so I'm going to start with that. I've got my bowls all set up, ready to work now. So plastic in the bowl, coils are going to be built inside the bowl, so I'm going to set that aside just for a minute. All right, the other thing I would have right next to me are my sketches. So if you have your sketches, make sure that that's ready so you know what order your coils are gonna go in. And for me, I definitely started with making sure I've got lots of coils rolled out. You don't have to do this, but certainly it helps as far as time goes. So I'll have a couple out here. Also, just as a reminder, when you're rolling your coils, trying to get them to be, as smooth as possible, even end to end. Roll them in your hands to begin with, and then roll it on the table. If you're having a problem with it starting to get squared off, so this got really flat, it's because you're pushing too hard in one spot, or just not being able to have enough room to kind of pull your hand on your coil. And this one's pretty big now to manage, so I would just break that in half and then just work on that smaller portion. Okay, when you're rolling your coils, reminder too that we don't want these to be super thin. Okay, I'd rather your bowls just be a little bit sturdy, a little bit thick, so kind of like these coils where they're nice and thick, rather than too skinny. Okay, so especially since you're trying to transport things back and forth, if you make it really skinny and fragile, I just worry that things are gonna break. All right, so I've got a couple of coils ready to go, and my first part of my design was to put a spiral into the bottom of my bowl. So I'm going to start by creating this spiral. I'm just rolling up my coil, and same process as with those little combo pots that we just worked on, you are going to smooth out the inside. So when we're working on these bowls, the whole inside of your bowl is going to be completely smooth, while the outside is going to be where the design hangs out. Okay, so I've got my spiral on the outside, smooth on the inside. That is going to go right into the center of my bowl. Okay, so from there, my next thing I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a long coil and wrap it around my spiral. So I'm going to go kind of like this. I'm going to take that, put it around my spiral. And at this point, anything that I'm adding, so this coil or this coil to my spiral, I need to score and slip in between. So you can kind of test fit that. The bottom of my bowl is really flat, so I'm actually just gonna do it on my work surface for just a minute. So with my pin tool, which I can't find, with my pin tool, I'm gonna score the outside of my spiral. And this is really, really important with coils, because if you don't do a good job scoring, then they will just completely fall apart in the kiln. So you really need to scratch up the surface of everything that you combine together. The only exception is when you make your design. So if you make a design and you smooth it on the inside right away, your clay should be soft enough at that point that it's gonna stick together. Okay, so now I'm gonna take those areas that I scored, combine that together, overlap my coil just a little bit, and I do want to make it so that on the outside of my coil I don't want to see where it stops and starts. So I'm actually just going to quickly try to smooth that together. Okay, any imperfections on the outside of the coils, which I can see a lot of right now, I'm not going to worry about that until I take my plastic off of my form. Okay, so there's my first section of my bowl. I've scored and slipped it together, so my second step is always going to be attaching the coil. So, and I'll pull this out so you can see it easier. So with my coil, if I were to leave this and work on like maybe 6 different things and then come back and try to start smoothing things together, this is going to start to firm up and you're not going to be able to get as good of a connection. So every time you add a coil or a design, make sure that you smooth it together so that the inside of your bowl is completely smooth. Okay, so pull that clay back and forth really, really well. Once you've got it really well pulled together, then you can use your sponge. I don't have a lot of water on here. It's pretty dry, just enough to really finish smoothing and pulling all that together. Okay, really smooth. So you can see a couple of indents where my fingers were, that's fine. Outside, still good. Okay, so that's gonna go back into my bowl. Next part of my design, I think I'm gonna do some arches. All right, so that is gonna go next on my bowl, and I need to make some more. So when you're working on your design, you just wanna make sure that you're consistent. Every time you add your coil or whatever it is that you're doing, when you make it, you smooth it together on the inside so everything is connected. And if you wanted to, figure out a pattern or a design here on your table surface first and then put it into the bowl, that's also fine. I just wouldn't do too many things. So maybe I want to do this kind of back and forth pattern. I wouldn't do too many things at once before I start smoothing together my bowl, because like I said, it would dry out and then you'll have a problem. Okay, so make sure all of my outsides are outside and my insides are inside. So there we go. That one needs to be pulled together. And then from here, I could take all these little pieces, put them into my bowl, and start smoothing them together. Score, slip, and seal everything. I'll need to shape my my arches just a little bit. So if you can kind of see, I have to shape it to work better with the curve of my bowl. And I might end up with some holes. So something like that, if I were to do it that direction, I might end up with some holes. So maybe some flat shapes would work well in there. Or maybe I'll decide, just because of the shape of my bowl, that I want to just work my way around this outside edge. Okay, and these are all spirals on the other side. And then I'll come back in and add some flat shapes in between that. Okay, so again, everything is going to score, slip, and seal. So this would all be smoothed down into my bowl. Okay, with something like that, if I were going to continue my way around and doing more of these half spirals, I'd go around my bowl. Probably the next thing I would do is just one solid coil all the way around to help trap all of that in there and make sure that it's not going to be too delicate. Okay, that would take me to the point where I'm going up the walls of my bowl. So once I start stacking up the walls, it's going to feel just a little bit different. Some of you might not have such a shallow bowl, so we'll pop it into this. So if you have a bowl that has this has a much smaller base. So what happens in here is already my little spirals are going up the side of the clay. So if you can kind of see that, it's starting to bend up the walls of my bowl, which is fine. So it really depends on how broad your bowl is as to what kind of shape you're gonna get with the designs, okay? So that's kind of the getting started point. Depending on which class you're in, we're gonna revisit and talk about finishing details later in the week. And so by Thursday class, you should be about up to the middle of your bowl with design. And between the Thursday and Friday classes, we'll talk about finishing up the top, making sure we've got a nice smooth coil all the way around. We'll pull them out of our plastic and look at the outside of our bowls. Yours will hopefully stay together. But we'll be able to kind of look at our designs that we've made and work on finishing up the exterior of the bowl. Okay, here's the fun of the bag. So when you're done with your class or your work time, all you have to do is take your bag, put it into your bowl, and that is ready to be stored. Okay, so if you are ready to take a break, you just pop your bag around it and store it in wherever your ceramic supplies are. If you're working with the plastic wrap, you can do the same thing, but that is not going to be enough plastic to keep it from drying out. So if you're doing plastic wrap, put this whole thing into a Ziploc bag and seal it up so that you don't have to worry about it being too dry. All right, that is it. So that's the getting started part for your coil bowl.